What's going on, guys? Your host, George Mackay. I'm here. I'm in the building. Again, another fantastic interview lined up via phone. I have with me today, Gabriel Faureza. How are you, sir?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing pretty good.
That's
Thanks
good.
for having me.
Oh, no problem, man. Thank you for taking the time out. I know it's hard with your schedule and stuff like that because you're blowing up, which is why I had to get at you soon, because pretty soon I wouldn't have time to get at you. So this works out perfect.
It sure does.
So the first question I always ask everybody I interview, because I'm a big fan of figuring out when the wrestlers themselves fell in love with wrestling. And I call it the defining moment. Do you remember your defining moment?
I think I do, yeah.
Okay.
To put it simply, the Halloween Havoc match between Eddie Guerrero and Mysterio would probably be it. It's always been my favorite match. It's still my favorite match. I literally just had gear made paying tribute to it. So I would put that probably at the top of the list. Either that or I know it's kind of a taboo subject, but watching Chris Benoit win the Royal Rumble in 2004, that might be too.
I don't really think it's a taboo subject. I mean, yeah, surrounding the circumstances of what happened, yeah, it's very clouded. But even when, like me and my former co-host, we did a profile on Chris Benoit in one of our earlier episodes. And we even said at the beginning, we understand that this is a subject some people don't like to talk about. We don't have to talk about him personally, but we can always remember how great he was in the ring, because he was that damn good.
Oh, he was untouchable, honestly.
I mean, they don't call yourself the Rabid Wolverine without being able to go in there and just dissect an opponent, right? And that's exactly what he could do. He could hurt you 20 different ways.
Yeah, no, his intensity is like, even now, like, I obviously watch a lot of wrestling, and it's just something that, like, almost nobody can match, like, that level of intensity that guys like Benoit and, like, Guerrero and Angle, it's something, just a little extra. And, like, very few people have it. Yeah,
it's that it factor, if you will, and he had that in spades. I mean, he wasn't really great on the mic, but he made up for it with what he could do in the ring. And that's, and to me, that sometimes is what stands out. I love a promo guy as much as the next guy, but I believe you got to talk the talk and you got to walk the walk.
Yeah, I agree.
And when it comes to you, and now being able to have the honor and privilege to see you wrestle, about 4 times, and most recently, just a few weeks ago at Crossbody, and you were able to capture the Internet Championship in quite amazing fashion. And you took it from one of my good friends, another former guest, Justin Sane. But man, that match was incredible from start to finish.
Thank you.
You guys,
thank you.
It's hard for people who don't really love the sport like we do, or who aren't involved in the business like we are, to really appreciate the storytelling that goes on in a match. But there was so much back and forth, so much speed, so much high flying. It was just, that match left me exhausted. At the end of that match, it was hot as hell in that arena that night, but at the end of that match, I had to go get another bottle of water, because I literally had to catch my breath. And that's the truth.
Yeah, me too.
So what did it feel like when you captured that title? I mean, you had other title opportunities. You had a go at Pretty Ricky for the Blue Ribbon Championship, which did not go your way. But then this one finally goes your way. You get the decision. What was that feeling like, holding that gold, that belt, for the first time?
Honestly, it felt really good. I know that's what you're supposed to say, and you're supposed to say that it was a long time coming and whatever and all that stuff. But honestly, it really did feel good. I won other championships before, but this one I really felt like I'd earned it, and I'd worked for it. Specifically in the showcase shows that Crossbody puts on. I've been to all but one, I believe, and I'm not one to like feel overly confident or cocky about really anything, but those shows I really feel like I've been learning a lot and kind of growing as a performer, and I thank Crossbody for that chance, and in that way I think I've really earned the right, not only to hold that championship, but to represent the company.
Yeah, and I think you're gonna do great as a representation of the company, of the organization. I mean, I'm very close with Ben. He was on the show as well, and the first time him and I met, it was, you know, like kind of like a little bit of a bromance, and he gave me an opportunity to do commentary for the first time there, which I had a blast. I hope to come back and do it again very soon. But I mean, it seems like Ben is great with giving the opportunities when people have earned them, or he sees how hard you're working. And I've been to now 5 shows in total, and every show I see you at, I see something different. I see something new. I see something more impressive than the last time. And then that's when, you know, I approached you. I said, we got to get you on the show, because it's my show, so I can highlight whoever I choose to highlight, but it's the talents that I see working their ass off that I feel that I need to give the time to, so people can hear their story and understand how hard they've been working. And that's a tip of the hat to you, because you really have put the work in. And I think that title, yeah, it's cliche to say it, but let's say it. I think it was a long time coming, and I'm damn proud to say you earned that one. And I feel the same way you did about that.
Thank you.
So don't let anybody ever tell you different. And if they do, direct them my way. Unless they're bigger than me, then I'll direct them back to you, and you can take care of them.
Yeah, I don't know. You get thick skin quick.
So tell me about, so we know about your defining moment. When did you start training, and who did you start training with?
I started training, let me think, just out of high school, so it must have been probably around 2011 or 2012.
Okay.
And I trained with Rob Fuego over at Squared Circle.
Yes, Mr. Fuego. We've heard a lot about him and how well a lot of people got their start there at Squared Circle.
I hear a lot of bad things about Rob Fuego, but he is the king. Honestly, I have all the respect in the world for him. I still see him here and there, and I love chatting up and getting his opinion on stuff. Obviously, people have different opinions based on whatever kind of wrestling that they've been brought up with, but you can't deny that like half of Ontario was trained by Rob Fuego, and that in itself proves just how good he was.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you've got that many accolades, and you look at all the stars that have been bred out of his facility. A lot of wrestlers who I've interviewed most of them have mentioned Rob Fuego at one point in their life. Either they didn't start with him, but they ended up going to him to fine-tune things, and he really is a master of his craft. I luckily have not heard anything bad. I've only heard good, so I want to keep that one intact for sure. Hopefully one day I can get a hold of him and get him on the show. I would love to talk with him.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to hear more about him, because he's a private guy.
Yeah, is it so? That brings up an interesting question. When you're at the shows, and I mean, right now, currently in your development, you are a heel, but I believe at one point or time you were a face. Did that transition happen out of your own choosing, or did it kind of come with, you know what, I'm feeling stale, I'm feeling stagnant, maybe it's time I switch it up? Or was it just being a heel was the natural direction you wanted to go, but you wanted to have that kind of turning point to make it happen instead of just starting off as a heel?
Well, typically when I started, people wanted me to work in the face, just because, smaller guy. I kind of do more flashy things. I can, backflip and junk and all that sort of stuff. So people are like, well, I'd rather you work as a face because, you can do these stuff whereas other people can't. So, yeah, typically you don't really get the choice at the beginning, so it's just whatever work you can get. I don't mind working face. Sometimes it's even more fun than working heel. Typically, as fight or flight, we work face almost everywhere. And it's fun. It's just as rewarding. It's just as fun. But I felt like me as a singles character, I never really had a concrete character. It was just kind of me, and it was just. I realized that it was getting boring. Like, I wouldn't really cheer for me that much. Like, maybe if I saw me wrestling, I'd be like, oh yeah, that guy's alright. But as a long term, month to month thing, it's like, wow, he's kind of boring. There's other people who are more interesting. So yeah, it just felt right. I guess in my personal life, I kind of had the extra little boost that I needed to kind of let some steam off in the ring, and being a heel was kind of the way to do that for me. So it was as much trying to keep myself fresh as it was trying to self-therapy myself. So I guess that would be why.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So not to get too personal, but you had that kind of thing and personal. And I've heard, it's not the first time I've heard a lot of wrestlers say, sometimes I'll take things from my personal life and I'll bring it in the ring just because it gives me that little extra boost. So when you did make the transition and you turned, and it seems like you're having a lot of fun. Like when you're out there, you love to play with the crowd. Like after you won against Justice Sane, there was a little stare down when you were in the corner holding the belt. And he kind of walked by you, and there's a little stare down. And you kind of did this. It was hilarious because you did it so perfectly. You did this thing where you kind of, like you pretended to cry, like he was going to cry about it. And it was genius. It was very subtle, but it was the perfect thing to do at the perfect time. And you can't. That's something I think you can't teach. I think you know very well how to maneuver the chess match of the audience because in this business, as we know. Reactions count. Whether you're a face and you're getting those big pops, the cheers, the yeah, woo, or you're a heel and you're getting the crowd interaction where they literally do nothing but smack talk. And you seem to get that ever since you turned when you were in Fight or Flight. You seem to get the more of the smack talk towards you in spades. But you smack talk is equally back. So, I mean, as you've played off more, it seems right now anyways, you're having a lot more fun with the heel side of things. Would you not agree?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. As a face, you're kind of limited to what obviously you can do and say, and I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a bad person, but I'm certainly kind of an asshole. So it's much easier for me to be a heel and kind of push it a little bit harder than it is to be a face and be as squeaky clean as I can. Mm-hmm. So the whole pretending to cry thing, that's just something my mom would do. So my mom is the kind of sassy Mexican lady that would just pretend to cry and oh, you want to fight? I'm going to blow you a kiss instead.
Well, I hope one day to meet your mom because she sounds like an awesome lady. She sounds like a fantastic person for sure.
She's literally the reason I'm a good heel.
That's awesome. So family. Let's talk about family for a second. In terms of this business, a lot of times family members don't necessarily agree with a wrestler's choice. I've heard some wrestlers say they had support right out the gate. I've heard some wrestlers say that their parents still won't come to watch them wrestle. And I've heard some wrestlers say that my parents were completely against it. One of my former guests even told me he had to leave his house because his parents were so against him wrestling. How is the family dynamic with you? Do you have that support system?
Yes, in spades I do. My parents are actually the ones who first introduced me to wrestling. They actually, I like to tell the story that the first wrestling show I went to was in the womb because when they were, I guess when my mom was carrying me in her stomach before I was born, they would go to the CMLL shows in Mexico.
Nice.
So that was just their go-to thing. That was just their Friday night date or whatever. So I imagine I went to quite a few as a pre-born baby. So there's that, and then they're the ones who showed me the Halloween Havoc match. Well after it happened, they showed it to me in 2003 or 2004, but they had just kind of pulled me into the other room and they were like, hey, we want to show you something. And they had that match on. They had found kind of a highlight of Rey Mysterio. And I think it was also Rey Mysterio versus Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit from a random SmackDown, which is also a very good match. So they were the ones to first show me wrestling. And they, I didn't find that until a few years later, but they had actually wanted to put me into Rob's school a few years before I ended up going. They had inquired, and at the time it was just too much money to put aside. But my mom ended up telling me afterwards that she had actually already talked to Rob, and they had already got kind of a estimate, I suppose you would call it. And it was just too much at the time.
So, but a couple of years later, you were able to go and do things on your own.
Yep. So it worked out in the end. I guess that's why she told me. If I had never become a wrestler, maybe she would have just not told me that. But yeah, no, they're super supportive. They're not the type to come to shows too often, just because they're socially awkward like I am. But no. If I go away for a weekend, do 3 shows, then the Monday, my dad and I are sitting watching all 3 matches. So no, they love it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great when you can have that support system. So in terms of like friendships and connections you've made within the business, and obviously you probably wrestled some of your friends or some of, the cohorts you have there in the business. Is there somebody right now that you haven't wrestled yet that you're eyeing to get a chance to get in the ring with for a one-on-one?
Top of my list right now is Daniel Garcia.
Okay.
And I'm actually playing him this Saturday.
Nice.
So I'm very excited. In terms of people who I haven't wrestled and it hasn't kind of come up, let me think. I'm getting kind of good at. This is gonna sound bad, but I'm getting kind of good at getting the people who I want to wrestle with.
Okay.
Certain places. So I've crossed a few of those off this year actually, but man, who would I want to work? It would have to be some of the newer guys. I know Tyler Arrow is training out of Hamilton. I'd like to work him. I haven't wrestled Jesse V in a singles match.
Oh.
He's going to be really good.
Now that's a name that has surfaced on my radar, and I am doing my research on that. But yeah, I think that would be a barn burner. I think that would be something to definitely look forward to. Out of all the matches you've wrestled so far in your career, what would you say by far is your opinion of your best body of work?
Best body of work. The first one that comes to mind is a match that I had with Kobe Durst at Crossbody, probably a year and a half ago, maybe. That one was a lot of fun because it was just kind of a random one-off. I remember this was the first time Vertigo had gone to the UK, so I was kind of like looking for bookings because a lot of our bookings are tag heavy, and at this point especially. So with him gone, I had to kind of try a little bit harder to find some shows that I normally didn't do. And I had only worked Crossbody, I think, twice at this point as a tag team. So just out of the blue, I messaged Ben and he said, "Oh, as a matter of fact, somebody just canceled. So if you can work Kobe, then you're in." I'm like, "Yeah, of course." Kobe and I at the time had never even wrestled. We trained together, but we'd never wrestled. So yeah, it was just kind of like a random cold match, and it was so much fun. And I think we both looked really good in it. Everything was hit really well. Like we didn't have to do any like huge moves, like anything that we could kind of hurt ourselves. It was just big enough moves that got a really good reaction. Everything was hit very well. The pacing was cool. Like everything just kind of came together. I think at the time for sure that was the best match I'd ever had. Trying to think since then. I mean, I've had quite a few matches with Von Vertigo that I would put pretty high up there. We just know each other so well at this point that it's
former tag team partner. I mean, how can you not have a great match when you face off against one another, right?
Yeah. Recently I wrestled Josh Alexander. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Where did you wrestle Josh?
Barry Wrestling.
Oh. I got to ask you this question because I ask everybody that gets in the ring with him. The chop.
Yeah.
How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is that chop when it hits your skin?
You know what? I was so pumped of adrenaline that I didn't feel a thing.
You didn't feel a thing?
I didn't feel a thing. I was going into the match like super, super, super nervous, which is, I typically don't get very nervous before a match, but I remember being like nervous for an entire week. Not because I was afraid of Josh. Honestly, Josh is like one of my favorite people at this point. But I knew that he was going to bring it, and if I couldn't keep up, then he was going to let me know it. So that was making me extremely nervous. So yeah, in the actual match, he chopped me, and I didn't feel a thing. I heard it, I reacted to it, but my skin was just like, nope, you're too busy thinking about what else you have to be doing.
You know what I would love to see? A match that I would love to see if it could ever be booked. It's kind of like my Gabriel Faureza dream match. And this is just because I think you two would work so well together with your speed and his power. I got to say you versus Big Mike.
Oh, yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
I think that match would be... But see, it's got to be a stipulation match. And what I mean by that is it's got to be an Iron Man match. I don't think you two could just go out there and have 15, 20 minutes. You've got to give me a solid hour. Because I think the story that will be told in that match would be epic.
That would certainly be a lot of fun.
Well, you know what? Ben listens to my podcast a lot. So, Ben, if you're listening, book it. It's got to happen. Big Mike versus Gabriel Faureza for the Internet Championship. So in terms of your, I've noticed a lot at the shows when I'm kind of there doing my, I do some pre-interviews. And by the way, this interview is fantastic so far. So you and I are definitely going to have a part 2 for sure. You're officially now a member of the Straight Talk family. I have to tell you that right now. But I've seen you a lot while, during the show, while most of you guys are out there preparing for your matches and you're going through kind of the motions. I've seen you sometimes step away from whoever you're fighting with that particular day to assist someone else in the ring. Either give a pointer or a tip or something that would look good at a particular time. Do you find yourself or people coming to you more and more for advice or guidance when kind of working through the motions of a match? Somebody come up to you and say, hey, Gabriel, what do you think about this particular bump at this particular time? Like, have people kind of approach you? Because I see it myself, but I'm not sure if it's maybe just you kind of overhearing and saying, you know what, let me just throw out a suggestion, or if it's actually saying, hey, Gabriel, can we ask you, for some advice? What is that something that happens on a regular?
More and more, I'm finding. With crossbody, sometimes Ben asks me to help agent some of the matches with, the newer people, or... I think he asked me to agent 2 female triple threats.
Yep.
Which I love doing. I'm starting to realize I love wrestling, but I think I might love agenting and teaching more. So yeah, the whole agenting. I literally come up with 10,000 different ideas and then hit it with all of them and then figure out which one we want to do and how we can do them best. And I just love agenting, and I'm kind of getting asked for my opinion a little more and more. I was actually I went to go do Impact on the weekend, and I'm not expecting anything, just showing face, helping out, keeping some friends company, and Aiden Prince was wrestling on the show, and Aiden's someone I consider to be very good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's planning his match, and he comes over. He's like, hey, can I get your opinion on something? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I'm doing this thing, and it's ending here, and I just need something to do here. What would you do? And I obviously didn't make a big deal of it, but I was honestly really kind of humbled that he would ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he's a mega star or anything, but he's someone who I consider to be pretty good, and for him to think I'm good enough to ask for an opinion, but honestly, that was probably the highlight of my week. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, it sounds like that would be. I mean, if somebody who you consider to be equally as good as you or maybe a tier or 2 better is coming up to you for advice, that's definitely humbling, but that shows your work, shows your ability, shows what you're made of. So I think, at that point, the matches that I've at least seen you agent, as you will, is the term you used, I think that's what I would like to, again, steal from my good friend Holden Albright, which when we interviewed him, he talked about level up moments. And I believe more and more, since I've been around CPW and I've been able to see how it's all working, I gotta say, man, I think you're leveling up that way. So you've got the knowledge, you've got the training, you've got the look, you've got the ability, so why not share it with the world? And I think you're at that stage right now where you're at that serious level up moment. And I don't know, because I haven't followed Crossbody religiously up until recently, but I don't know if you and Holden Albright have tangled for the Crossbody Pro Championship. But if you haven't, that would be an intriguing match as well.
Yep, that would certainly be be an intriguing match. That's one me and Holden are hoping and crossing our fingers for. I think every time I see him, at least in one point, we're like, oh, if we wrestle, we could do this. Like, oh yeah, okay, write that down.
Write that down and remember it.
Yeah, we're waiting for it, and if it ever happens, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, but I think for you two, it's got to be a falls count anywhere. It can't just be staying inside the ring. It's got to be a falls count anywhere.
Yeah.
You got to go to the outside, because with your speed and your ability and what the power he brings to the game, like I've seen him just decimate guys, and then I've seen him get almost decimated but still pull out the win. Like the last match he had against Frankie the Beast. Jesus, that was a match I didn't even want to stop watching. But then he drank my water. So if he's listening to this, Holden, you still owe me a water. You drank it. But it was an epic match. And then at the end, you and Alexia Nicole, you guys came out and you were sitting right next to me. And at the time, I'm like, I know these two, but I know they want to keep character, so I'm just going to let them be. But man, it was super cool to see that ending, and you guys helping him get the rope off around his neck, because it was a little tight for sure. But
oh my god, I thought his ear was going to come off.
So I know that you've done some intergender, and more importantly, you've done it with another one of my favorite females in the business right now, which is Alexia Nicole. So let's talk intergender for a second, because I mean it had its time and its appeal in the Attitude Era. ECW was a big advocate of the intergender wrestling, and then it kind of tapered off, and then recently it's kind of had a resurgence. What is your stance on intergender wrestling? Because I know Alexia Nicole, and I wouldn't want to meet her in a dark alley because I know she could beat the crap out of me. And that's the truth. I love her to death. She's the sweetest person in the world, but when she puts on her game face, I just want to be in the back row where I know it's going to be safe and I can't get hurt. So what is your stance on intergender as it is right now in this time period in wrestling?
I mean, I'm all for it. I understand where there's that kind of like disconnect, especially with like mainstream audience, because they, as much as they like to tell us that wrestling's fake, they don't really know exactly what's going on.
Right.
So they see a man and a woman, quote unquote, fighting, and they think, oh, it's domestic abuse. But that's the thing. Like, wrestling isn't fighting. It's more than that. It's a dance. It's theater. It's choreography. It's more than let's say you put a guy and a girl in a boxing ring. That's something I would disagree with, because it's just not fair. In a wrestling ring, anything can happen. A girl like Alexia, who's 5 feet, can pick me up above her shoulders and throw me to the mat, and we can make that believable in that world. So I love intergender wrestling as long as it's done right. I don't necessarily agree with matches where the guy's just kind of like beating the crap out of her, and I understand that like that builds sympathy, and in the end, if she goes over, then it makes her look that much stronger. But I think people have to like realize that sometimes pushing the envelope that hard all at once kind of alienates people.
Mm-hmm.
That's why whenever I do intergender matches, I plan with the idea of, okay, well, a little boy's gonna watch this and a little girl's gonna watch this, and I don't want the little boy to think, oh, hitting girls is okay, so yeah, I can do that. And I don't want the little girl to think, oh, me getting hit is okay, so I'm just gonna let it happen. Because that's not the idea. The idea is to very subtly promote equality, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason I like to wrestle so many girls is because I know I can wrestle a different match with them than I can with any guy, right? And even between them, they can be different. Like, the match that I would put together with Alexia is very different from the match that I would put together with Jody Threat, right? Jody Threat is much bigger, and I mean, I've worked out with her, so I know how strong she is, and I know she could probably kick my ass if she had to. And Alexia is much more athletic, and I kind of like pushing her to do things that she knows in the back of her head that she can do, but she needs that little push, right? So like I love having kind of high flying matches with her, and like sort of these complicated spots, and we've actually had one match where I was the face and another match where I was the heel. So that was a lot of fun, because how do you get the crowd to cheer me when when I'm fighting this cute little bubbly girl, right?
Right.
So, like, that's a challenge in itself to make her look like the bad guy. And you know, I'm the one who has to, like, hit her and still remain the good guy. So that was a lot of fun because it was really challenging. And then we had another match where I was the bad guy and she was the good guy, and it was like, okay, I'm going to bump like crazy for you. And it was going to be so much fun. So I love it. I love doing it. I love watching it. I don't think I've ever really watched one that I was kind of like, oh, this is awful. But like I said, from a mainstream perspective, I can see how it might be a little bit polarizing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, people just have to like remember that wrestling is not boxing and it's not MMA. It's, as much as we, you know, hurt ourselves over and over, it's still a performance. And, you know, some people don't like to use the word art. I do, just because I come from like a theater background. So I would call it a performance art. So yeah, the idea of intergender wrestling to me is fine, because if you see like Swan Lake, you know, that's intergender day. You know, there's intergender everything in entertainment, so why not wrestling?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think actually you probably gave one of the most picture-perfect answers that I've had when I've asked that question. But I just want to ask you your opinion on one of the biggest intergender matches that we've had in recent years, which, if you watch the Impact pay-per-view, Sami Callihan versus Tessa Blanchard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I haven't actually got to watching that one.
Oh, okay.
But I actually watched, well, like I said, since I was at Impact, I watched Tessa's match she had with, I don't even know if I can say, but she had a match with a very large gentleman. And it was so good. It was just a TV match. It wasn't anything, like, spectacularly, like, it was no stipulation. It was just something that was supposed to go from this angle and transition into another angle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was fantastic. It really was. And Tessa Blanchard is so good. It is unbelievable. It really, really, really is. You can tell that she believes in everything she does. She believes in herself. And if she doesn't, she is doing a fantastic job at faking it. So I believe every time that she wrestles a guy, whether he's Sami Callihan or whether he's Andre the Giant, that I believe that she can win. So I haven't gotten around to watching yet, but I'm sure it's fantastic. Solely because Tessa Blanchard is fantastic, let alone the fact that Sami Callihan is also extremely talented.
Yeah, it's definitely one for the ages. It was probably, in my opinion, it's an early front runner because we're only halfway through the year, but I would definitely give it match of the year standpoint right now.
Really? Yeah, I'm gonna have to get around to watching that very soon.
Yeah, check it out because it's worth it. Every angle and every bump and every part of the story that's told in that match, it will much leave you like you guys left me in your triple threat, exhausted. So let me pose a question to you that I always love posing because I'm a big, I love, I don't know if you've read comic books as a kid. I'm sure you have at one point or another, but there was a great series of comic books from Marvel back in the 80s, 90s called What If?
Uh-huh.
What if the Punisher's family didn't die? What if Captain America didn't agree to the program? What if Wolverine never had the adamantium? So forth and so on. So let's talk, I don't know, a couple years down the road. No timeline. But you're waking up, you go downstairs for a cup of coffee, and you sit down at the kitchen table, you're going to eat your bacon and your eggs, and in front of you is 5 contracts. WWE, Impact Wrestling, AEW, New Japan Pro, and Ring of Honor. And the only reason I throw out those 5 is because those are the 5 I, myself, follow religiously.
Uh-huh.
So, you got 5 contracts, all for the same amount of money, the same amount of years. Which company do you sign with, and who is the first person you work with in that company?
Without thinking about it too hard, I think I would go with AEW.
Okay.
It's just a gut feeling, I think, right now. The WWE right now is just so cluttered that to get lost in the mix would be very easy.
Right, it's very oversaturated. I agree with you 100% on that.
Mm-hmm. Although, probably the one wrestler in the world that I want to wrestle more than anybody is Roderick Strong.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
There's the dilemma. but AEW right now it seems fresher, and the chance to get in with something that's going to grow and trying to grow with it would certainly be appealing.
Okay, so you signed AEW. Okay, cool. You've crossed your signature on the paper. Now, who's the first person? You have a chance to pick anybody on the roster right now in AEW. Who do you go at first?
I'm going to pick someone who you might not expect.
Okay.
If it's 5 now, I'm going to pick Kip Sabian.
I love it. I think that's a great choice.
Because I think in 5 years, he's going to be somebody to watch. I think somebody to watch right now, but that 5 years from now, he's going to be a main event guy. Who knows?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah.
No, I think that's a great choice. But I also have another choice for you since you went with AEW. Someone who I think you could work extremely well with, because you both have that larger-than-life personality in the ring. I'm going to say MJF.
Oh, yeah? I've actually, I worked him for about 2 minutes in what was it, like an elimination fatal 4-way.
Nice.
At a very Alpha One show.
Nice.
Yeah, no, that would be fun. I mean, he's probably one of the top heels in the business right now.
Oh, he's hands down next to The Miz. He's one of my favorite talkers, and Kevin Owens. He's one of my favorite talkers right now in the business. 100%.
Yeah.
So, in terms of your career as it stands right now, a lot of accolades, a lot of great matches that I can remember. I'm a fan. I'm all in. To be cliche, I'm all in. But where do you see yourself in the future? Like, we talked about the what if, but let's talk about what the next steps for you are. Where do you plan to go? And what is the next steps you want to take in your career?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's weird because if you asked me this question a year ago, I would say that I was content staying here and wrestling my current schedule and just kind of settling, I suppose. But yeah, like I mentioned earlier, like things in my private life have kind of changed, and now I'm at the point where I just want to do everything I can while I can, and I don't know. I have no plan. I just want to see where everything goes. I'm actually not a Canadian citizen, so I'm right now in the process of getting that done and getting my Canadian passport so that I can go to the States a little bit more freely. I want to go to the UK. I've thought about Japan. I'm a Mexican citizen, so I want to go to Mexico. I just want to wrestle as many places as I can. I have no goal of getting signed anywhere. I have no goal of appearing on TV necessarily. I just want to wrestle as much as I can. And to be honest, it would be very nice to make enough of a name for myself that I can open up a school and have people not laugh at me. So that might be the goal right now.
Well, I think a school is definitely in your future because I've seen how well you agent some of those matches that I've had the honor of watching. And sure, you are a talent. You are. And I'm not kissing your ass. I'm just being honest. You really do have that something special. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for you.
Thank you. Me neither.
So one final question, because I'm always a fan of the what ifs. Dream match. Any wrestler, any time period, who would it be?
Oh, Guerrero.
Guerrero,
yeah, he's far and away my favorite wrestler. If you ask me who the best wrestler ever is, it's Eddie Guerrero.
Latino heat, eh? All the way.
Oh yeah. I watched it anything from like Attitude Era, or sorry, I guess I would call it Ruthless Aggression Era. Anything Ruthless Aggression Era, Eddie Guerrero, I could watch just all day. Like, actually, I go on binges sometimes. The first time I wrestled Mark Wheeler, the night previous, I had watched literally 5 hours of Eddie Guerrero matches. And when you watch the match back, you can tell because it's just, it's balls to the wall.
all the ideas came flooding out at once.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there any shows that you got upcoming that you might want to plug and let people know where they can watch you?
Yeah, for sure. So this Friday, I'm going to be doing the crossbody showcases that I mentioned.
Yep.
Those honestly are really going under the radar because there are really, really, really good matches going on here, and the tickets are only $5. And people are mistaking it with a student show. It's not a student show. It's a showcase show. So you have guys like me, guys like Mark Wheeler, guys like Holden Albright, Vaughn Vertigo, Alexi Nicole. We've all wrestled on these shows against newer guys who are trying to get an opportunity. Guys like Young Love, Adrian Astar, all of Ben's students like Kyle Brooks. I wrestled Jimbo Jones. You mentioned that I wrestled Pretty Ricky there. So these shows are so much fun. They're only $5, and they really are worth the trip. So I got that this Friday. Saturday I got Barry Wrestling. Barry Wrestling is what I would call my home promotion. So I'm always very, very happy to wrestle there. Like I said, I'm wrestling Daniel Garcia.
Well, you got to hook me. You got to hook me up then, man. You got to invite me out to one of the Barry Wrestling shows because that's one I have not been able to hit yet.
Yeah, please come because Barry, honestly, and maybe it's just because I'm a little biased, but Barry is putting on some of the best shows in Ontario, and they're family friendly. That kind of makes them go under the radar a little bit, but honestly, these shows are very good, and we have the kind of liberty to sort of try to tell stories, and it's hard to tell stories in independent wrestling because schedules change so much, and it's hard to get a guy like to go every month, but they kind of have a good roster going, and we've been managing to tell some pretty good stories. On this show, I'm wrestling Daniel Garcia, and the main event is on Vertigo against Tyson Dukes. And I really, if this doesn't come out too late, I really encourage everybody to go on Facebook and to watch Von Vertigo's video reel for promoting this match, because there's no storytelling in independent wrestling, and he puts a story in a 2-minute little video, and it's honestly, it's money. I'm telling you, Von Vertigo is probably my favorite wrestler. Like he needs, people need to see him, and they can see him on Facebook, and hopefully come out to a Barry show or two, you know.
What do you got going on in August? Because this will unfortunately air past this weekend. So what do you got going on in August?
Okay, well, August I got Union in Toronto, August 8th for SummerSlam weekend. We got Smash the next day. NSW is putting on a little show on August 11th. It's just going to be, a little tightly knit show. Should be fun. That's D4 in Ottawa. Crossbody, obviously. Fighter Fight's going to be at Alpha 1. Another showcase show. Crossbody's doing Taco Fest in London, 24th and 25th. And then I got Border Town at the end of the month, just before I go to Nova Scotia for the first time.
Amazing. So you're going to go out to the East Coast, man. You're going to have to get screeched in. I don't know if you know what that is.
Oh God, no, I don't know what that means.
Okay, so this is a little fun fact. I have a lot of American listeners, but this is for all the Canadian listeners out there. So Screech, Newfie Screech, is a type of alcohol. So I got to be honest with you, man. You got to have the stomach for it. But you take a shot of the alcohol, and then you also kiss the cod, which is a raw fish, and then you become an official Newfie.
Oh no, okay. Well, I'm glad you warned me.
Yeah. So when you go down there, just tell somebody, hey, I haven't been screeched in, and they'll take care of you. Well, Gabriel, I want to thank you so much for the time. It was a complete honor talking to you. And like I said, you are more than welcome. You now have my number. I have yours. And I hope to see you at the showcases. We can catch up. But anytime you want to come back on the show and do it again, you just let me know.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Take care, and I will talk to you soon.
Cool. Peace.
Bye. Well, guys, that was Gabriel Faureza. That was another great interview, as I always do. As always, guys, I am the host, George McKay. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to tune in next week for another great episode, another great interview. I'd love to tell you who it is, but I'm not going to. You're going to have to tune in, follow us on the socials, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You get the shout-outs at the end of the show. And don't forget, guys, please support the show, support what I do, support that we're straight to the truth, straight to the point. We are Straight Talk Wrestling. Please, check out our merchandise on ProWrestlingTees.com. As always, stay safe, guys. Peace out.